I go here or here? Either way. Good morning. Maybe here is better. Okay. Good morning. It's a very, quite an honor to be the first speaker at this wonderful conference. Thank you, Venerable Yifa, for this. I won't be saying anything about AI. Everyone else will, I think. Instead, I want to take a very brief look at a concept of clarity or clear understanding, which I find is very important in the works of Tiantai Zhiyi, who I think is the most important and greatest Chinese Buddhist philosopher. Next page. This one. Okay. I think in English, the goal of Buddhism is often described with words such as enlightenment or liberation or awakening or higher states of consciousness, such things. But today I'd like to very briefly speak about the concept of clarity or clearness and the Chinese character for that. Oh, there's a mistake in my PowerPoint. It shouldn't be Wu Ming. Take out the Wu. We'll talk about Wu Ming later. But Ming, or clarity, this character appears very frequently in Zhiyi's work, as well as other similar characters such as illumination or brightness or such. So I'll present just very briefly a couple passages from each of the Mohojikuan and the Fahua Zhuanyi, in which this concept is clarified. The first passage is a very famous phrase. It's the very first four characters of the Mohojikuan. And basically, it means shamatha vipassana, or the Buddha's practice of calming or cessation and contemplation lead to clarity and quietude. And this phrase can be read in many ways. In the Japanese Tendai tradition, they provide 8 different ways to read this phrase. You could say the luminous quiescence of cessation to contemplation, or calming and contemplation as luminosity and tranquility. But today I'd like to just point out the use of the third character there, which is underlined, that of clarity. And so the Mohojikuan begins very clearly with emphasizing this idea of seeing things clearly. A phrase, there's many phrases I could have chosen, but there's another phrase later in the Mohojikuan which emphasizes the same idea. And it comes at the beginning of the 7th chapter, which is the main chapter of the Mohojikuan, which talks about proper cultivation of cessation and contemplation. And here again we see not quite exactly the same terms, but the use of a character for clarity, which is in bold, and that you should utilize the practice of contemplation to contemplate the darkness and thus brighten the darkness. As I said, there's many passages similar in the Mohojikuan, but now I'll turn to the Fahua Zhuanyi, which is about the Lotus Sutra. And In this passage I'm quoting here, it very clearly posits the opposite of moving and so non-clarity and clarity. And one problem in dealing with this question in English is that usually Wuming is translated as ignorance, and clarity or enlightenment is the kind of not exactly the opposite, but are facing each other. And in this passage, it speaks of both of these aspects, and it compares to the teaching of Buddha right after his enlightenment to when a cow gives birth to a calf. At first, the milk that comes out is full of blood, but gradually it becomes clear and purified into pure blood. So it says the Buddha is also like this. When he first sat at the place of awakening and newly accomplished correct awakening, the unclear blood of ignorance and so forth was transformed into clarity. Okay. And so in Chinese, it's very clear, this juxtaposition of ignorance and clarity in the terms itself. You have Wu Min and Min. In another passage I've chosen, in which he's discussing the middle path and the perfect teaching. Coming in today, I saw someone holding a poster saying middle path, but I think that meant something else. And this passage says, at this time, ignorance is destroyed and the principle of the middle path is manifested. Your mind or thoughts are bright and clear and with a purity like that of ghee. So not just the Chinese character I mentioned earlier, but these other important characters such as being manifested and this other more unusual compound of, bright and clear. Also, I think, are attempts to convey the same idea. And one of the interesting aspects of Zhiyi's thought is the identity of opposites, or at least the inseparability of opposites. I don't like to talk just of identity because I think they're not exactly the same. Ignorance and enlightenment are not exactly the same, but they're inseparable. So we have this passage in which the identity or inseparability of clarity and non-clarity or darkness is examined. It says, since one is deluded concerning clarity or awakening, therefore one arouses ignorance or lack of clarity. If one understands this ignorance, then one has clarity. The Mahaparinibbana Sutra says, ignorance converts and changes to clarity. The Vimalakirti Sutra says, ignorance is or is indivisible from clarity. And finally, the last example is from the very last paragraph of the Fa Hua Shani, in which Zhiyi summarizes what he's tried to do through that lecture. In the very last phrase, he says, indeed, the passage of the path to perfect and penetrating understanding is found herein. And indeed, this clarifies the pervasive brightness of clear understanding. So I find it very intriguing that both the very beginning four character of the Mohoji Quan, and the very last phrase of the Fahua Xuanyi focuses on this idea of clarity. So if I might summarize, in brief, the purpose of Buddhism is to obtain clarity, that is to feel clearly so as to avoid damaging passionate attachments, to see clearly so as to be able to respond to circumstances in a positive and healthy way, to act clearly with moral rectitude, and to think clearly so as to act with wisdom and compassion. Surely such clarity is important for all aspects of human life. And as I said, I won't say anything directly about AI, but all of the papers following me will be talking about this subject. And I hope that the very erudite papers and presentations that will be given in this conference will help us to deal with this very difficult and complicated idea of AI and consciousness with more clarity. Okay, thank you for listening.